Hey there, good afternoon. It is Thursday. Boy, I can't believe this week has just really flown by. So, today we're going to do a little bit of experimentation first. Trying to figure out how to show what's going on with my screen. So, I have a PowerPoint presentation. Now, this is the presentation itself. Um, I would love to be able to figure out how to do, let me see if I go to this. And then I do the slideshow. And if I say from the beginning, dang it, that's not what I wanted. Let me see. So you can't do anything right on the screen itself. Oops, sorry about that. Let me redo this. Share screen, my PowerPoint, allow. And if I go to the PowerPoint, there, see, now it's on there. But I still need to go back to the PowerPoint. I think that works. And then if I do the from the beginning, oops, that puts it on the full screen. And forgive me, as I said, I know I'm live trying to do this. If I do that, then I can't see. Well, that kind of works. At least I can see if there's anybody on with this. And then also see my screen. Let's see, let's go into the Space TV. Just trying some different things out. Now I can watch my, there we go. I really wanted to look at the What Now again and doing some more psychological approaches to this whole Scientology, looking at where we need to go from now. I know tomorrow night, I think at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be on live with John Poe, Poe on the Go, and we're going to talk about the next steps, where we need to go, what's happening with the municipal and the national level issues that are happening. But we really need to get our minds around where we need to go as a community, what we need to do. If I'm on here, I really love to see the receipts. I know that's the one thing that trying to find out where we're gonna go is where are the receipts? To have all of these stories told for everybody to come forward is really great, but without receipts, they're just sad stories. Unfortunately, when the police are looking at this, and I know John Poe and Sir Crepidus will both tell you that 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 they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything without the receipts, without some facts, without facts and figures. If you don't have that, there's just no sense. So use this picture to depict what's the end game. Is it no more kids in Scientology? Is it no more abuse, no more deaths, no more 501c3, no more Scientology as a whole, no more elder abuse? Where's your go-to? What's your end game? And if you don't have an end game, you're just kind of flailing around. But if you have an end game, you need to figure out your steps on how to get there. If I know there's one person that's live right now with me, and I'm trying to figure out how do I see. Hmm, and as I said, bear with me. I'm trying to figure out this StreamYard. I apologize in advance for it. But if your whole end game is to just support other viewers and other streamers, then that's great. Then that's your end game. But if your end game is to revoke the 501c3, you need to figure out your steps. You need to figure out your psychological warfare of it and how you're going to get there. Definitely, you know, my feelings have always been if you really want something, you make it happen. If not, you make an excuse. Where are you going to go with this? How are you going to make this happen? Or you just going to let it die? I don't need easy, just possible. And if I don't think it's possible, I just need prayer. And every breath you take is an opportunity to start over. We all make mistakes. We all have issues. We all have problems and definitely roadblocks in our lives. But you always have the right. And is the fight too comfortable? Are you getting too complacent? Is the fight really your end game? Is that where you want to be? Ooh, I've got this huge old wasp sitting right outside my window. Ooh, go away, wasp, go away. But, are you ready to win? Are you ready to do what it's going to take to win? Is the fight where you want to be? That's kind of hard. What is the fight? Again, what is the end game? I look at this, the receipt where they marched around the Celebrity Center, and it's pretty sad. Just want to be able to help the community and be able to support the community. And what are my end goals? I guess my end game is to help support those that are ready, willing, and able to take on the fight. and be able to fight and have the courage. I think of I can't remember who it is in the Bible that they're standing there getting ready to go into battle, and one Samson, is it? Or I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But they're looking at and they're saying, "Wow, I'm really afraid. I can't go." And the prayer is, "God, please open his eyes so that way he can see who really is in the battle with him." And he opens his eyes and all he sees are all these angels and all these warriors that are alongside them. That's kind of the way I feel with some of the survivors, Serge and Nora and Lara, is that I just want to be a warrior in their battle. I just want to help them along. I just want to be able to be with them, knowing that they're not going to be alone in this battle, that they just need to stand up and be the David to the Goliath. Scientology happens to be the Goliath, but they're not going to be forever. And there's millions of us, millions that are really on in the same battle with them. I love the perkiness of Becky. She sure is, Pinche Becky. She sure is feisty, and she has the capacity to really fight for her people and for the unhoused. And she just really is a warrior. And I want to be part of that warrior group. I want to be part of the angels that are standing behind all of these survivors that are fighting. They're fighting to get 501c3 revoked. They're fighting to get Scientology knocked down. They're fighting to keep the kids out of it. Not one more child in an abusive situation. It's just that's the ultimate goal. That's definitely what we need to see. No more children in Scientology. No more abuse. How do we go from there? And like I said, that's one of the things. Just looking at being a support system. Hey there, Debbie P. How are you doing today? Thanks for being on. If you guys have different ways of being able to be a support system, it'd just be fabulous to be able to see that, to see what you have beyond just monetary values. It's really great to be able to send super chats or PayPals or put money on somebody's Amazon wish list. But I think one of the best ways is just supporting them, knowing that we're behind them. I really wish and pray that one of the survivors, one of the kids that are older, would take this mantle up and show Scientology just how it is, and know that we all have their backs, that all they have to do is look, and we're here. Uh-oh, I think I lost service. Debbie, can you still hear me? Did I lose my internet? Can anybody still hear me? There we go. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate it. I'm not too sure what's going on with the internet here. There we go. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm lucky in some respects to have an Elon Musk internet system here, because other than that, it's just purely satellite. And when you live in the back countries, that's all you have. I don't have cable. So it's, at least I don't have cable bills. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to make do with what you have on the internet. So yeah, it would be really cool if we could get Liz Gale or Serge. They're all so vocal about their stories of the past. but get them to just be on the bandwagon of let's just make this happen. And I think as Never Ends, I think maybe more and more of us should put our voices out there to say, hey, we just appreciate you and we want you and we want you to win. We want you to have success in everything you do. And unfortunately, sometimes I feel like they do feel like the fight and the journey of the fight is the ultimate goal, and they forget the end game. And I want to be such a good support and so encouraging to them that they can stay with the battle long enough to make it a win. I have a few strategies that I've talked with Serge about and Nora, and I'm really wanting them, as I said, to pick up the sword and make Scientology go away. What area of the nation are you from, Debbie? I know Nora and Liz are all up in the Northwest, and then we have all the group down in LA. Oh, yeah, that's right. Chicago. That's where Windy City is from too, huh? Yeah. Isn't it just amazing though, as Never Ends, that I guess maybe it's hard because we don't have. Hey, Sir Crepitus. Yep, I just decided to do some information. I'm gonna go live with Poe tomorrow night, I guess. Maybe you could join us. Talking about what now? Where are we gonna go? What do we need to do? Excuse me. Yeah, and it's like with Becky, when we were talking with Becky, and even last night, she's ready to die on that battle hill, and it's so cool to see that. But it almost feels like the survivors are so afraid to get smacked back down again that holding them up, I think, yeah, it did go in a little different way, didn't it? But that's okay. Maybe it's something somebody needed to hear. Sometimes streams just don't go as planned, that's for sure. Sorry about that. I've got a fly that's just driving me absolutely nuts around here. It's that time of year. So, maybe being able to prop the survivors in and prop them up and help them understand how important it is. You know, I know that I've approached it, especially for revoking. Yeah, people did have a lot of questions. Especially, one thing that I was thinking of, not to kind of change the whole subject here, um, is that what happened? I know that you filed a criminal report against Wendell Manning, but are they going to go looking for him? Are they going to make it to where they arrest him? Was that a PPA? I guess maybe I don't understand how the whole system works. If I send you a link, do you want to join me? I have no idea how to do that. Let me see. I do present. No. Invite. Copy. Okay, Sir Crepitus, this is for you. Me neither. I've never done it either. I'm still trying to figure out how to get all the screens together. Are you kidding me? At least I figured out how to show my PowerPoint this time. So I invited you. That's the invite for Sir Crepitus. Okay, great. All of this new technology stuff. Okay, let's see. Hopefully we'll figure this out. I have to be smarter than the computer sometimes. Ha ha ha, that doesn't always work. Let me see. So yeah, while we're waiting for Sir Crepitus to get on. Yeah, this is pretty cool that we can all be in the same place at the same time around the world. But it sure can be scary too. There we go. Okay, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh,
And
it worked.
forgive me, I woke up super early in the morning after hardly any sleep, and then I took a nap and I just woke up again. So
Oh, well, good for you. You got a nap. That's awesome. Okay,
yeah,
so thumbs up. We made it work. We're both on the stage of the very first time. Oh my gosh.
let me see if this will go landscape for me. Hang on one second.
Okay. You did a flip over.
Okay, am I right side up for you?
You are right side up this time.
Okay.
Very cool.
So your question was about PPAs, private person's arrest, right?
It is. Well, yeah, because you and Becky went in the other day and you helped her file a criminal report, right?
Right.
So does that automatically mean that they're going to go and arrest him?
Yeah, I'm hearing an echo for some reason. Hang on one second.
Okay.
Are you hearing that?
I'm not hearing an echo, no.
All right. Bear with me one second. I got echo. That's weird. Okay, if you're not hearing an echo, that's fine. That's just on my end. So a private person's arrest is something that is only utilized when the suspect is still at the place. So let's say you call in an assault to the police, but the suspect is still there. The police will come, they'll detain the suspect, they'll interview both parties and any witnesses. And because the suspect is there, you can place the suspect under private person's arrest, and the police will take the suspect into custody. In
Okay.
a case where, let's say the crime happened several days ago, the suspect is no longer in the area, well, obviously you can't arrest him there on the spot. So you would not utilize a private person's arrest. All you would do is you would have a crime report taken, the police would investigate, and then they would end up arresting him after the fact. But Yeah, private person's arrest is only for the immediate arrest of a suspect who's still at the location, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you know it, let's say if I was Becky, how would you know whether or not they've apprehended him or what's happening? How would you know?
The detective would reach out to you if, again, I'm hoping the detective in this case does her job, and I've asked her to make sure she gives it about a week. That way, it gives time for the case to get assigned to a detective. Then she can reach out, call over there, reach out to the detective, let him know that she's there, and if she needs anything, he can call her. And then once a week thereafter, keep calling and checking in. That way, he knows that you're keeping tabs and you're going to be serious about it.
Okay, so let's remember that what was his name? The one that does the jump roping, and
Wendell.
they had a fundraiser for him. He got arrested at the same time Scotty and all of them did. Um,
Was it
I
Danny?
No, it's not Danny. It's
Chris?
let me look real quick.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
know
can't remember. There's been so many
he
incidents now.
Josiah.
Josiah?
Is it Josiah? Josiah.
It it sounds
You
familiar.
you know who I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah, I do know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so he was, yeah, Josiah. Thank you, Chiara. So, Kiara, is that how I pronounce it? Yes. And so he apparently the same night that everybody else had an altercation over at the La Poubelle, apparently he was up around the corner and uh Patrick Perry said that he had hurt him or assaulted him or said something. And then he, like a week later, got arrested because
Okay.
the guy filed the PPA or filed the crime report. So, I mean, I've never been in in an incident to where I've had to been arrested or whatever, or there was a warrant out, but apparently there was a warrant for him. Now, would they automatically do a warrant for Wendell Manning now because she filed a crime report?
Yeah, so what should happen is the LAPD detective, whoever gets that case, should reach out to Becky, interview her again, even though she's already made the report. They'd interview her again, and we gave the officer doing the report Wendell's identity. So we made it easy for them. The detective really doesn't have to do much work at all. So the detective should reach out to Becky and ask her to meet. And they usually do what's called a 6-pack. And basically, you ever heard of a show up like they or a lineup? They have several little people that are
Oh,
lined up,
okay.
and one of them might be the suspect. So it's
Sure,
kind of
sure.
like that, but it's on paper. They'll take Wendell's photo and mix it in with a bunch of other suspects that might look kind of similar, and put those all on one page, and they'll show it to her and ask her to point out the suspect. If that is successful, then the detective will move forward. He will write up whatever reports he has to do. Usually it's called a supplemental report. And then he'll submit the case to the DA's office, and he'll issue a warrant for Wendell's arrest. Now, detectives can go a step further and have field officers go out and look for Wendell. That doesn't always happen, but that's something that they can do. So at very minimum, they'll issue a warrant for Wendell's arrest. So next time he has contact with police, they'll arrest him.
Huh. So, saying all of that, I guess that's just why I was just so confused. Is that saying all of that when Josiah was arrested, it was, and Kiara just said, I mean, Patrick said that he went to his house and then threatened him. And so it was a he said, she said, or he said deal. But
Yeah.
yet they went
No.
ahead and put out a warrant and arrested Josiah. That's
Mm.
crazy.
Patrick went to Josiah's house.
No, Josiah supposedly went to Patrick's house and threatened him.
Allegedly, right?
Allegedly, right.
Interesting. That actually took some big balls to go to somebody's house who's prone to violence. I wouldn't have
Right.
done that, but yeah, gosh, I'm really not too familiar with the incident, but I mean, did Josiah go there just to protest at Patrick's house, and then
wasn't even there at all.
Oh, so it's a he said.
Exactly.
Wow, and they actually arrested Josiah based solely on Patrick's word with no proof. Interesting.
Yep. Oh, supposedly there was a Scientology video that showed him there. But of course, Scientology won't put forth the video.
Yeah, if the police, basically, if somebody can say a video exists, but if you don't produce that video, it basically doesn't exist as far as the police are concerned.
Right, right. Except for it's Scientology, so they're kind of taking Scientology's word on it. And I guess Patrick Perry's wife is a Scientologist.
Oh,
And
geez.
so anyways, that's when Scotty was in jail. And Scotty came out and he said, "Look, I'm just really worried about Josiah. That's all I'm worried about." And they had raised money for him. Well, that's when he was arrested. Nobody else even knew he was arrested because of that supposed video of him. Yeah, and Patrick Perry is the one that attacked Aaron.
Wow. Wow.
And so now he has to go. I think his court date is any time now, to where they charged him with a felony for assault on a he said. That's why I'm just so curious as to why wouldn't they just go get Wendell Manning when there's proof that he did it?
Yeah. Yeah, the initial officers who showed up to the scene and refused to take the report from Becky were just lazy. Lazy. That's what it boils down to. I've seen it 1,000 times in my career, and it burns me. I mean, I've seen on very rare occasion one of my partners deny somebody a report, and the person gets upset. I would just wait for my partner to leave, and then I would just go ahead and take the report myself, and then I'd yell at my partner later for being such a jerk. But yeah, in Becky's case, it just boils down to laziness, and but now the ball is rolling, and like I said, it could take up to a week for that report that Becky just made to make it to a detective's desk, and from there things should start moving. But unfortunately, sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves.
Can I ask a stupid question?
No questions are stupid.
So there's a difference between the person that takes a report and a detective?
Yes. The person or the officer who takes the report is simply just gathering facts and documenting them. That's all they're doing. Sometime during their shift or at the end of their shift, they take that report to a supervisor to be proofread and to be either approved or denied. If the supervisor denies the report, it just means that the officer needs to make some corrections. Could be typos, or maybe they did some kind of procedure incorrectly. So yeah, so it goes through an approval process with the supervisor. Then the supervisor sends that off to a clerk who will copy and upload the report to a database. And then from there, it finally goes to a detective sergeant. That detective sergeant will then assign the case to a detective. So it's kind of a process. It could take a few days or even up to a week to get it all done.
Yeah, that's way more to it than what I thought.
Yeah, and of course, if the case is something unusual or extremely violent or something that needs to be addressed immediately, they'll push it right through.
Okay. Yeah, my brother's a federal police officer, totally different. If you're in his face or if there's something going on, you're probably going to get, taken in right away anyway. So,
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
used to the normal processes.
yeah. In California, well, this applies probably to most states, if not all. If a misdemeanor occurs, like in Becky's case, the crime is a misdemeanor. It's a SA type of misdemeanor.
Okay.
Um, in order for the police to arrest Wendell at the scene, somebody has to be there to sign the private person's arrest form, because when a misdemeanor happens that is not in the presence of the police have to have a private person's arrest in order to take him into custody. If the misdemeanor occurs in the police presence, then the police can just take him to jail because they witnessed it, and they can just take him to jail. They don't need a private person's arrest in that case. So
Right.
in Becky's case, had the officers actually showed up the first time when they should have, and if Wendell was there, Becky could have placed him under private person's arrest right there. Boom. End of story. If the police do their job.
Right, if they would have been doing their job. Kara, yeah, I totally agree. The comment, I don't know if you can read the comments at all or not, but it says basically the difference is Scientology and LAPD working together against protesters, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's very possible. I because of what I did for 34 years, I I was trained to be impartial, and I always am impartial until I see what the facts are. And in the case of LAPD, seeing these streams in real time, which is so important, I'm able to witness everything that's going on.
Right.
In Becky's case, I wasn't there, I I know Becky and I believe Becky, so I'm not going to doubt her. But um, yeah, so it's possible LAPD and Scientology could have this cozy relationship, and they're working in concert. That's possible, and it wouldn't be surprising considering the relationship that they have. LAPD um, uh, showing up at their events and dancing and singing in their events and providing security for their events and all that stuff. Plus Scientology donating money to the mayor and to LAPD.
Right.
Yeah, I could see them being corrupt enough to protect Scientology and
Yeah.
Scientology only. And that's not right. That's the police should be fair and impartial. That's the only way people are going to get true justice. And that's not happening.
So what, okay, so Wendell is a convicted felon. He had just been recently released.
Yes.
So he's a felon and he had misdemeanors that he just was released like on May 2nd.
Yes.
Doesn't that take into account, don't the police take into account that when somebody calls on them? Or is it every time is a new clean slate?
No, that when Whittle's record would come into play upon arrest. When somebody calls 911 and says, "Hey, there's this guy, flashing himself and all that and doing things," the 911 dispatcher you're talking to has no idea who you're talking about. Even if you tell them by name, they're not going to know.
Okay.
But the officers in the field are familiar with Wendell, so they would probably know who it is once they get there. So yeah, and Wendell also has a cozy relationship with Scientology. As you've seen, Scientology storing his personal stuff for him and letting him sleep on
I saw
Scientology
that.
property and all that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, that was because I was watching it when he first showed up. Him and a younger fellow were arguing. I couldn't really hear about what, but they were arguing. Apparently, he might have been just a nephew or a son. It kind of looked like it was his son. That's the way it looked, anyways. So,
Yeah, it's
anyways,
possible.
they were sitting on the grass, and you know how Scientology hates it when people are on their grass. Get off my grass, said the old man. And
Right.
one of the security guys rode up on a bike, told him to get off the lawn, and then left. And so that's when they finally did get off the lawn, and he started unpacking his chair and all the stuff that he had,
Yeah.
everything that he had kind of wound up with the rope. And he started taking everything off, and then he came over and he started talking to Scotty, and you could see the knife in his hand, and it was like, oh, what's he gonna do with that knife in his hand,
Yep.
that big curved blade?
Yep. And knives are scary too. I'd rather get shot rather than stabbed, to be honest with you. Of course, when I'm
Yeah.
working, I
And
wear a
so
vest.
then
So
everybody on the chat was like, oh, watch out for the knife, watch out for the knife. And then I mean, Scotty kind of just didn't really say much. He just kind of was cool about it or whatever. Then he went over and he started unpacking all of his gear, all of the chair and his recording equipment, whatever he had in there. And then the cops showed up. And I think all of us assumed there was two or three cars. I think it was 3 cars. So 6 total cops, right? And we
right.
all thought, oh my gosh, Scientology, the security guy on the bike must have called about them trespassing, about Wendell and that other kid trespassing. And all of a sudden, the cops walk right past Wendell and up to Scotty. And Scotty's like, you're here for me? And they said, well, yeah, you were on the bullhorn. And
Yeah.
and we're going to arrest you. Oh, we're going to give you a citation for it. You just sign the citation and everything will be cool beans. Then, we'll leave. And then all of a sudden he went, you got to be kidding me. What did I do now? I disrupted a religious service? And he goes, nah, take me for the ride. And then that's how that all started. And then they came back for Wendell because somebody said, oh, no, wait a minute. Wendell is the one that attacked Chris.
Yeah.
Then he kept saying, I'm not on patrol. I'm not on probation and I'm not on parole. He kept screaming that. And then he said, I want the sergeant. And then the sergeant came and they unhandcuffed him. So I was watching this whole thing and then they let him go. And then it happened with Becky. So the cops weren't but around the frickin' corner
Yeah.
when Becky called.
Yep, they're always close by over there.
They weren't very far away. Why did it take 3 hours to get to and they saw it was Wendell. They knew they had just cuffed him.
Yeah. Well, speaking only from experience now, my department is way different than LAPD. You would never see this kind of garbage going on with my department. But I'm not making excuses for the officers,
No, that's
but
okay. I like to
yeah,
hear it. I like to hear
yeah.
all the information.
So none of us were there that day except the people that were involved. And there are times when it's so unbelievably busy in the field, and you could have officers that are busy booking suspects, or maybe busy at a location where somebody was unalived, and so you only have a few units in the field. So you dispatch calls to these units by priority. Like, a human has to make a judgment as to which calls should be priorities and which ones can wait a little longer.
Sure.
Now, and in that case, you're going to have a long response time. I don't know if that's what happened that night or that day, but 3+ hours is so unbelievably excessive. I mean, I could see an hour if it's a horrible busy night and there's hardly any officers out there. I could see an hour, but 3.5, no way. Now, it is also common sometimes, and this did happen on my department. I was not this person, but there were people that would get a call, and they only know what's going on based on the tiny little snippet of information that the dispatcher includes with the call. It could only be just a couple of sentences.
Sure.
And the officer might think to himself, this call is BS, man. I don't want to go to this thing. Screw this. It's stupid. It's drama. That may be what the officer is thinking. And then they'll just simply sit on the call and not roll to it, hoping that by the time they got there, the problem's already solved itself. That happens. It really does happen. And it happens. I don't care which police agency you work for. When there's humans involved, I guarantee you that is happening in some cases. So that could have been also what happened that day.
Probably.
Or it could have been, do the officers have an order from a higher up superior saying,
right,
if you get calls for these protesters, don't rush in, just screw them, let them simmer for a while. I don't know what's happening, but any one of those scenarios is wrong.
So how, in your mind, how would the priority be justified from these little shits around my grass and disrupting my religious service to this guy's whacking off in front of a minor and a lady? I mean,
yeah.
How do you weigh that justification?
Yeah, the crime that happened with Becky should have been definitely far more a priority than the latter. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, even Becky's call should have been dispatched as a priority, not an emergency, but a priority. Most police departments, they have three levels of calls. They have routine, which is, okay, you got this call, get there when you can. Then there's priority calls, which is, this is a priority. This should be your next response, unless you have other priorities also still pending. Then the officer has to prioritize those in his mind too. And then there's emergency, which is, you roll with, code 3 with lights and siren, and you get there now. But in Becky's case, that definitely would have been a priority call.
Like that day that Danny got hit from the old guy on the scooter. That was code 3.
It should have been. It damn well should have been. And I mean, even if the crime already happened and the suspect is gone, because, well, now I don't know what people told the police when they called 911, but
that's the issue, is that he was hit by the scooter, and they said that he was the one that was the hate crime against the guy, and they came in lights a blaring. What?
Yeah, I mean, they should have rolled code 3 just based on what happened to Danny. You take a scooter to the head or the face. That's an assault with a deadly weapon. And I'm sure everybody by now has seen the photos of Danny's injuries or Chris's injuries.
No, Danny was the one that was walking along, and the old man hit him with the scooter. So he put his hand out so that way he didn't get hurt.
Oh, that one. Okay, yeah. The old man pushed the scooter towards him, and Danny kind of brushed it out of the way. Okay. See, there's so many things going on, I can't even keep track anymore. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was. But now compare that little thing. Even if Danny had, even if he had swatted at the guy or swatted the scooter out of the way, even if he had done that, Chris's assault, Confident Chris, when he got assaulted that one night.
Oh yeah, that was like a couple of hours.
Yeah, he was badly injured, very badly injured, and yeah, they didn't roll code 3. They just showed up whenever they wanted to. But yeah, in Danny's case, yeah, that was ridiculous. They showed up so fast, and but who knows what Scientology told the dispatcher when they called. People need to realize when you call LAPD or if you call 911, the person you're giving the information to only knows what you tell them. So you have to be clear, concise. If you have to make sure you tell them if there's weapons involved, because sometimes they forget to ask if weapons are involved. They're supposed to ask, but they forget.
Well, that's why all of these SWAT things, all of these SWAT calls have a pew-pew called in as the information, or the person
Yeah.
has a RIFLE, or they took somebody. Those are all key words, I think, that they tell dispatch to get the SWAT.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Lying to 911 is actually a crime. People can get arrested for that, and I've actually
Right.
arrested people for that before. I had an incident when I was working in the field, where a woman was having an argument with her husband, and yeah, there was yelling in the background, but then she said, "He's got a gun. He's got a gun." I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but anyways. Um, so we got sent code 3. There's probably about 4 of us that were rolling code 3 trying to get there, and the other people that didn't have authorized code 3 were probably also hauling ASS trying to
Right.
get there. It endangered all of us. Well, we get there and come to find out there was no weapon involved. There wasn't even a gun in the house. And the wife was just lying, and she admitted she lied to make sure we got there quicker. And there was no crime except for what the lady did, so I took her to jail for it. I went and booked her for false information to a 911 operator, because what she did endangered not just our lives, but the lives of people that we had to drive around to get their code 3.
Right. True. True.
Yeah. So yeah, but something tells me LAPD is not interested in investigating Scientology's lies on the 911 line.
Or anybody's, really.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. Now I
Yeah,
guarantee you,
because there's been not only the police swatting, but the fire department swatting.
yep, that too. And I guarantee you, if a protester called and lied on the 911 line, they would be arrested by LAPD. I guarantee it. Definitely a lot of bias there.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Um, and I've said this before. I may have said it in somebody's live stream, but and this also rung true for me, when I was working the field, and that is when you have a constant problem at the same place and you get called out there multiple times every day, the police get frustrated and they get tired of it. And I've been in those shoes. We keep getting called to the same place over and over and over again for the same thing, and it gets frustrating. And 9 times out of 10, the calls were BS. So what I would do is I would talk to whoever the informant was or alleged victim was who called, and I would scold them because they're calling unnecessarily, and they're tying up resources. I would scold them, and I would also remind them that that calling in false 911 calls is a crime. And I would never take it out on the people they're calling about. But in this case, LAPD is taking it out on protesters instead of telling Scientology, "Hey, knock it off. Enough is enough. These guys are exercising their First Amendment rights." That's what LAPD should be doing: is going to the informant, Scientology, and telling them that.
So
But they're not.
we've been there, we've done that, we've talked with OIG, we've done all that. In your experience and in your personal opinion and profession, what would take, as a police officer, you've been out there a zillion times because it keeps getting called on. What would it take for you to say, what's the truth behind what they're yelling about? Can you open an investigation
Well,
off from
um,
just what you think might be happening? Let me give you a scenario. Let's say
okay.
all these kids, grown kids, Laura, let's take her for example. And you hear her talking about all of these, or Serge, about these atrocities that may be happening behind those blue walls. And you put that in your mind. Is there a way for you to go, there's got to be something more to this? What would be, and it's a hunch, what, as an investigator or as an officer, what could you do?
Well, we're dealing with Scientology here. It
Right?
it would be an overwhelming and monumental task in trying to investigate something like that, because lots of times Scientology, they won't even let you through the doors. You'd have to have a warrant, basically. But as an officer in the field, if somebody's telling you that people are being held against their will, or people are being physically abused behind those walls, as a field officer, you can write a report to document it and let the detectives do whatever they're supposed to do or want to do. As a field officer, and keeping in mind this is Scientology we're talking about here.
Sure.
You can ask them, hey, I need to come in and do a welfare check on so and so or whatever, or I need to come in and take a look. They don't have to let you in. Now, if somebody says somebody is being beat, or there's some type of harm, life-threatening harm that's coming to somebody inside there, you might have exigent circumstances, and you can just go in to check on the welfare no matter what. Scientology can't keep you out of there in that kind of case. But again, it's Scientology. How do you get in? How do you get them to cooperate? Because if they're doing something wrong, they're not going to cooperate.
And truthfully, it's probably not a acute abuse. It's probably an aggregate abuse.
Yeah, abuse over time. And most of the time with Scientology, it's systemic. It's just
right?
Part of their process and part of their beliefs in itself that can be abusive. Like what happened to Lisa McPherson with the introspection rundown.
Right.
Closing you in behind closed doors. They don't let you leave, and there's security there to keep you in. That is illegal. That's basically kidnapping and holding somebody against their will. That's just a felony. So it's hard to say.
And that's why I think it's so hard to deal with this as those that are adults, because either one, they're brainwashed and they don't think they're being held against their will anyways, or
Right.
two, that's just what they're used to doing, and it's not illegal for somebody to go missing if they want to be missing as an adult.
Right. Yes, that's what we call a voluntary missing. Yep.
Yeah. But as a child, that's why I keep bringing it back to the children and trying to do the child abuse. Now, it's like that picture Jay of Denver had happened upon all of those Sea Org members out there getting a picture. There was like 3 of them that they didn't even have hips yet. Darn well they were 10, 11 years old. There's no way they were over 18. No way.
Yeah. Well, how Scientology gets around it is, they're not calling them employees, they're calling them volunteers. And they're getting away with it.
True. And that's how you have to bring it back to the auditing, the courses, and I'm trying to remember the third word that they use. Sec checking, to where they're being abused during those times.
Right. Yeah, and surely the auditing thing is an issue. When it's a crime to share or utter sexually explicit material to minors. You can't do that.
Right.
It's illegal. It's a crime. It's a form of child abuse. So yeah, that is a problem. And Kiara was asking a question here. Can anything be done about the elderly doing manual work? Kiara, yeah. First of all, when I protested that one night at Pasadena, the Pasadena org in California, every single person we saw going into that org were very elderly. Some of them were using walkers. And it was unbelievably sad, because that those people are being taken advantage of. And how many of those people have cognitive are in cognitive decline? How easy would it be to take advantage of them? And then you start thinking, How many of those people have put, reverse mortgages on their home or maxed out their credit cards or spent their entire savings for the cult? It's disgusting and horrible. But manual work, if the elderly person's volunteering to do it, they're doing it on their own free will. It's unfortunately not a crime. Now, if this elderly person was told to go sweep the sidewalk and they said, no, I'm not going to do it, and then they were forced to do it, now you're talking about indentured servitude. And in California, anybody over the age of 64 is considered a protected class. And that would be a crime. That would be elder abuse, of course, if that elderly person was being forced to work against their will. Yeah, that's a big deal. But if they're volunteering to do it on their own free will, then it's just not a crime.
So one avenue looking at that, yeah, they're too afraid. They won't say
Yeah.
anything at all. One avenue that I wanted to look into that I just haven't had time because I've been doing too many other things is, okay, so when you become SSDI or SSI eligible, meaning that you're retired or you're disabled to where you're old, you're old and you're disabled. When you go to, let's say, a memory care facility, a residential facility, a retirement home, a nursing home, then the state, because Medicare doesn't pay for that, so it's Medicaid or your retirement that'll pay for that. So when you go to one of those homes, your portion of the care is everything but $50 in California. California allows you to keep $50. So my thoughts are Scientology probably has opened up some of those rooms, either in the Blue Building or in Pasadena or Sacramento, as long-term care facility rooms. See where I'm
That
going
is,
with this?
oh
And they're
yeah,
taking
oh
their
yeah.
Social Security and SSI, everything but $50. So even though they may not even be receiving money from them, but now it's reversed. They're taking the money from these people, which I don't know which worse, living in a retirement home or a nursing home, or living in Scientology. I don't know what's worse, because that's just as bad, really. But still, now they're abusing financially the state, even taking their money, and the federal taking their money. And as long as they have rooms that are assigned long-term care or residential memory care, they can take all their money, all their retirement.
Yeah.
And let's say they did retire as a public and they were getting $5,000 a month. They can take $49.50 every month of those people.
Yeah, what you said just blew my mind because I never really gave it any thought that they could be operating as a care facility. And
Yep.
that is entirely possible. Mind completely blown. Wow, congratulations. Um, that could that's possible. Now, these care facilities are supposed to be licensed and they are subject to being inspected by, I forget which government agency it is. But I thought when I was working, we've come across unlicensed care facilities being run out of people's homes before, many, many times actually.
Yep.
So,
I I know when I lived in Alaska, they had like so many rooms per area and to license, because that way it didn't flood the market with too many assisted living or memory care or retirement homes.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. It
Mud
is a
Skipper,
global
hello.
scam.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it, they could have been allowed so many rooms because they have so many elderly that are termed memory care or retirement care, and
yeah,
they're getting funded by those people. So yeah, they're going to work them, and that would be just so. That
Yeah.
kind of really even pissed me off, but
Yeah. Yeah, and it's entirely possible. I would wonder in a scenario like that if the cult was operating in part as a elder care facility, as you described. Um, how do family members come visit? Does Scientology allow family members into their facility? What if the family member doesn't like Scientology?
true.
And
But you
and
like in memory care, you can have a locked facility, and that's
yes,
totally okay. You get locked in, and the reason I know all of this is because being a person with a disability, as a yeah, they can lock it, and you have no choice. As a person with a disability, my sister had cerebral palsy, and she was over in a residential care facility for a little while also. And they lock those doors for your protection and your safety. You're
and to
not
keep them
able
from
to leave.
wandering off. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and if Scientology is running that kind of sham, would that part of their building be considered a church? No, because it's now a care facility. The laws would be different as
You're
far as
right.
law enforcement is concerned, if that's happening.
You're
Wow, what
right.
an interesting thing to explore. Hmm.
But that's I was trying to find if any of those buildings, which there's so many of those buildings. They have so many buildings, especially there in LA, to see if any of them were licensed LTC or memory care. And I just don't have the capability. I just haven't had the time to look into that. But that's certainly something that somebody that lives there that's in the healthcare system, they could probably find that pretty easy. Like they could get a list of all long-term care
Sure.
places, like if they were going to put their mom somewhere or dad somewhere.
Yeah, that's something I might actually be interested in trying to dig into. And when it comes to Scientology, it would be no small task. Scientology, they have all these front groups. It's just hard to say, but it's definitely something I'm interested in now.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I've always had a soft spot for the elders. I mean, when I was working before I retired, there were many times I had to take elder abuse reports, and you'd be surprised at how horrible family can be to each other too. There was lots of fiduciary abuse going on, and I always put extra effort into those. Did a lot of my own investigating. I always made sure I wrote the best report I could, so that way the detectives will have a strong case. And yeah, it always bothered me. Child abuse and elder abuse is just, there's no excuse for it, and it's just something that definitely affects me.
Definitely the kids and the elderly. I know my mom, which is why I moved back here to Michigan, had Alzheimer's. And she lived with me. I took care of her for quite a few years. And some of the stories that used to come out of her brain, I know had no. Oh, yeah, Mike Brown probably would know. Definitely, Layla. That's a good
Yeah,
thought.
I think yeah,
Um,
we should reach out to Mike.
yeah. Well, I some of those stories my mom would tell would be like, I don't know where you came up with that story, mom, but so it was really hard for me, even knowing my mom and loving my mom greatly. You're like, she has complete delusions and has no idea the difference between reality and not. And that's pretty dang scary thinking that if Scientology has LTC or MTC capabilities, memory care capabilities, you, you couldn't ask an older person, are they mistreating you? Because you wouldn't be able to rely on the answer one way or the other.
Right, right.
And they have to have advocates. They have to have somebody.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, that usually falls on the family. It's so easy for family to just, okay, let's put grandma in the home and then never see her again. It happens.
It does.
Um, yeah, and for anybody out there that does have a family member in a home, make sure you do visits, do surprise visits. And when you do that, You know, just aside from talking to them, if you can check their back, check the bottoms of their legs, and if you're able, check their backside too, to make sure they don't have bed sores and stuff like that, because these facilities, even some of the good ones, are notorious for not repositioning patients or their residents in their bed, and they get bed sores, and that's actually elder abuse.
It is,
Um,
and honestly, that's why my sister ended up in a care, because she ended up getting a bed sore. She used a chair also, and
yeah,
so she got a butt sore, and
yeah, and
that's what she
that
passed away from.
yep, I was about to say, yeah, because
Yeah,
those can often, you know, if they're not caught in time, they can turn septic, and it can be fatal, especially
yeah,
in older people. It can be fatal very quickly, and
yep,
that
that's
happened
what
to my
happened.
grandmother.
Yep. So I know, and she was in an actual great. I just right down the road here, I found a really great facility, and it was an old facility, but it was great. It was wonderful. And my mom, I ended up placing her there at the very end of her life because she fell one day getting out of bed and she just couldn't remember how to walk. With
Hmm.
Alzheimer's, you not only lose the memory of your memory, but your body loses its memory of how to do things, and she
Yeah,
forgot how to walk, and I just couldn't keep her safe here. I
yeah,
couldn't protect her. So I had placed her over there also, and when I went and sat and had lunch with her every single day, we would have, her birthday, and we had all sorts of fun until COVID hit,
yeah,
the, that lovely little thing that hit, and then I didn't get to see her for almost 7 months, and then she passed away,
that's terrible.
It
Yeah,
was
sorry to hear that.
ridiculous. But,
Yep.
I'm really concerned, not just for the children, because it's you don't see the children going in and out of there. It The investigation would have to be somebody, a parent that says, "I'm not having my children do this anymore," and them coming forward and having that be the impetus for an investigation. That, I
Yeah,
think, is where it needs to come from.
yeah, that may very well be the case, and yeah, it would. You know, again, how much cooperation are you going to get from LAPD? You know, or even Clearwater PD. I mean, I don't think they're as bad as LAPD, but I believe that Clearwater PD is pretty protective over Scientology also.
Mm.
And yeah, and you know, also the parents might be a little bit afraid too, because if a parent knowingly allows their child to go into harm's way like that, they could be charged with neglect. Also, it's possible. Um, you know, if you're a Scientologist parent and you know that your child's gonna have to ask very explicit questions, or talk about very explicit things with adults, and you're allowing them to go in there and do that, well, that could be a problem too. So how do you get those parents to come forward? I don't know.
And is it a catch-22 if the parent says, let's say, I know I've watched the lady named Reese every once in a while, and
Mhm.
her son, and
Relatable
she
reach, yeah.
just got out. Yeah, relatable Reese, and she just got out last year when she was outed by Aaron, and so she never really let her son get into doing the auditing and everything. So there's kind of a catch-22 there, because then he wouldn't be considered really a victim though, right? Even though she would be saying she knows of the atrocities that happen. See, that's where, you really have to wonder how the heck, how do you set that trap?
Yeah. Well, you know, um, you would think that this kind of stuff would be investigated anyways, because you have actual Scientologists who are not parents. Well, take Serge, for example. He's getting out there, he's putting the word out, and he's tried contacting the authorities, and he's told the police about these kids doing that stuff, and nobody has given a rat's ass so far.
Patoot, yep.
So, you know, it doesn't take a parent to come forward. I mean, it could just be a Scientologist who has knowledge of it to come forward. And, you know, back in 2008-ish, the FBI was investigating some things in Scientology, and it just kind of never went anywhere. And word is they're investigating stuff now, and so I'm not going to hold my breath. But Scientology is a massive, massive machine, and how do you take down a machine like that by force? It would take multiple agencies, multiple surveillance operations, multiple simultaneous search warrants once you have the probable cause, and it would be a monumental. I would say it would probably be the biggest operation that the federal government and local law enforcement could possibly do to take them out by force.
Wouldn't that be fun, though?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. I would definitely be making popcorn and sitting back and enjoying the moment.
Yeah, we had a comment from Ann Chatrine. It's sad to see all the old broke people in every stream, and they all work hard. Yeah, this has been a long running deal for a lot of people. I mean, the people that are adults now are in their, late 20s, early 30s, some even in their 40s, and they've been dealing with this since they were kids. It is sad.
Yeah. And then think about the elderly who don't have family anymore, or never had kids, and they're all by themselves. Those are the forgotten ones. I mean, it's horrible to even think about the power that Scientology would have over somebody like that. They would never get help. So, yeah, and that was a good comment for sure. But anyway, so yeah, something's gonna have to give sooner or later, and it's not gonna happen with LAPD. I can guarantee you that. And
it's not. And I think I've shown you a complaint that I had made, and that I'm really trying to pull prod those that are survivors to do it also. That's the only way we're going to get this, because the only way to get through all of this hubbub is to find like the child abuse and narrow it down to that, all of those illegal activities that are happening, and be able to prove them. And the only way to do that is to bring receipts, because without receipts, it's just a sad story.
Yeah, it is. And you and even Poe on the Go, you've touched on this, but it is really important that people get more deeply involved. Write to your congresspeople. Reach out to law enforcement. Try to get meetings with law enforcement brass, law enforcement executives in the jurisdictions where you think this abuse is going on. And it's been done. Back in like 2007 or even the early 2000s, and a few times in the 1990s, people have done all that. They have written congressmen and women. They have notified the FBI. They have talked to departments. They've gone to meetings and commissions and spoke about it, and nothing ever came to fruition. But people should keep trying. If you give up, then you're sure nothing will ever happen if you don't try. But if you keep trying, something sooner or later has got to give.
Yeah, and I think more and more with and Mud Skipper, yeah, you're right. Having the documentation, especially with all of these streamers, is a huge game changer. Huge. I know Mark Bunker and all of them did their recording back then, but now it's not only, now it's everywhere. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's got documentation. As long as you whip it out and start recording, there's your documentation.
Yeah. And, the scary part is LAPD and Mud Skipper, that's a good comment. LAPD is doing this even with the body cams rolling. Now, at least I hope they're rolling. They should be rolling. Anytime they have contact with the public, their body cam should be rolling. So they just don't care. So when officers in the field don't care about how they're favoring Scientology, when they don't care about that, that tells me one thing. They are getting orders from above to conduct themselves this way. That's what's happening. Because on my department, if we conducted ourselves that way, especially catching it on body cam, we would be in big trouble. There would be an investigation, of some kind, either unit level or internal affairs, and we would be either counseled or disciplined for it. So, deputies on my department are really, really careful. And of course, being human, they do slip up sometimes, but they're really, really careful because they don't want to get themselves in trouble because it's on body cam. LAPD officers don't care. So that's telling me that they're being enabled from above. They're getting orders from above.
Who do you think? How high do you think that goes?
Oh, it's going to go all the way to the mayor. I guarantee it. Because, if it was just, let's say it's just a lieutenant that told them, hey, this is what I want you guys to do, and this is how I want you to handle these situations. They can't get away with it because the higher up brass, they're going to find out about it. The police chief's going to find out about it, and then the mayor's going to find out about it. So it's coming from the top. That's the only way this can continue, is if it's coming from the top, and the top is the mayor.
So marching orders are to start going top down rather than OIG, go even further.
That's what I believe. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
In terms of Scientology in Los Angeles, I think it just stops at the mayor. Although the mayor could possibly be kept out of the loop, or might not know all the information because it could be stopping at the police chief.
But the mayor is only going to know somebody at that level, though.
Right, somebody at that level. Absolutely. Now, it could also be possible that because of all the violence we've seen at Christian churches and synagogues over the years, police departments are giving churches priority on some things in terms of response. Like, okay, we want you guys to prioritize your calls if these churches call in any kind of violent act, because they're a church and they're having been all this violence. I know with LA County sheriffs, there was a period of time they were doing that. This is when after somebody used a pew to harm people in a synagogue, for example. Our department put a blanket policy, at least temporarily, it's a blanket policy that any calls at churches we're going to prioritize. And maybe that's happening here with LAPD, but it's been going on for so long, for decades. This has been going on. I kind of doubt that. I really think that they just have a policy for the officers to prioritize Scientology because of their cozy relationship. It's got nothing to do with actual violence. I mean, how many times have the police been called on protesters claiming some kind of violent act, and come to find out, during the field investigation, there is no violent act that occurred. There is no pew or, fixed blade item
exactly
that was used. No chainsaws. I mean, okay, enough is enough. It's kind of obvious what's going on here at LAPD, but they're just going to continue to do what they're doing.
Okay, well, I think, I know I've received marching orders in the last couple of weeks about. Right. Yeah, I do agree that they thought the swatting was going to make them go away, make the protesters go away, and it hasn't. It's not going to. It's just going to tick them off more and make them dig their heels in. Yeah, that was a swatting fail.
Layla has an interesting comment there too. I'll touch on when you're ready for me to.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so Layla, it's a huge conflict of interest for an officer to make money as security on their off hours, and to boot, doing it wearing their LAPD uniform. And Layla, yes, that is a very good comment. And, you know, on the department I worked for, we had to have approval to work, let's say, a second job to make sure it wasn't a conflict of interest. I don't think LAPD does that. However, let's say, for example, the city was having an event, or a local church was having an event, or let's say even a school was having an event. The city would most likely require you to have some kind of security there. Some cities require you to have actual law enforcement security there. So let's say, for example, in the city of Lakewood, California, LA County Sheriff's patrols that station, and I worked there before. If somebody was having a wedding reception at the city library, because they had a nice big facility there for wedding receptions, the city required to have not just one unarmed security guard, but also at least one deputy sheriff present. And what the city would do is they would bill the person having the wedding reception. And it's the same case when you see LAPD officers in uniform at, the Big Blue, dealing with the street closures and also providing security in uniform. What's happening there is the city requires it, and either the city is picking up the tab, or they're billing Scientology to reimburse them for the hours, for the man hours and the equipment. That's most likely what's happening there. But now, if LAPD officers are working like an off-duty side gig as security, that should not be allowed, and it especially should not be allowed in uniform if that's what's happening. Our department, man, if I worked a side gig as a security guard somewhere and I did it in uniform, I would get in so much trouble. Big no-no.
But Bill, what about, or Sir Crepitus, what about armed? Why are they armed? Are they creating a narrative that the protesters may be violent, so they need an armed security?
No, well, are you talking about the uniformed officers?
The uniform officers, like, let's say for Easter, why in the world do they need armed security officers? And thank you so much for being on with me this long. I didn't mean to hijack you like that, but thank you.
That's okay. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I know I'm going to get my coffee sometime today, so it's all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, if an officer is going to be there in uniform, they've got to be armed, and the reason is because if there's an incident that goes down, the police have to be there to handle it. They're going to have to be armed. Me personally, I would never want to be in a public place in uniform without my pew anyways, because unfortunately, police officers, whether people like to believe this or not, they are a target out there for some bad people.
You're right.
And I would never want to be in a public place in uniform without mine. Hell, I don't even leave my house now, even though I'm retired. I don't leave my house without it. I can't tell you how many times I've run into somebody that I once arrested for a felony out there on the streets. It's not a comfortable feeling.
Yeah, and I'm completely, a 2 fan anyway, so that's not the issue whatsoever. I was just wondering, the intimidation factor is, why would they need to have armed police versus unarmed guards? So, I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
I would, at an Easter event, especially, it's supposed to be for the kids, and in the real world, it's supposed to be a religious event also. You would like to see just unarmed security there. That way everybody feels comfortable and nobody's intimidated. But yeah, if Scientology wants to ask for armed officers, they can, and the city just probably makes a reimburse them. And yeah, it could be very much a intimidation factor, because Scientology plays a lot of games, as we all know already. And if anybody thinks that Scientology is afraid somebody's going to go up there and use a pew to attack them, that's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. That's never happened to them before. I think the worst thing that's ever happened is some unstable ex-Scientologist showed up one time with a Japanese long-bladed device and threatened security there, and the security ended up using their pew-pew and ended up unaliving the guy.
Mm.
That's probably the worst thing that's ever happened at a Scientology facility. So yeah, it does seem overkill to have numerous armed officers there at that event.
Yeah, good point, especially with their thousands of cameras.
Yeah, yeah. And let me tell you, their camera technology is pretty good. They can zoom in very, very closely, and they can see a lot of detail. So
Yeah, pretty amazing. Only when they want to, though, right?
only when they want to, and only when the police aren't interested in their video.
Okay, well, I tell you what, I'm going to let you go get your coffee. Are there any questions for Sir Crepitus? Anybody
If
wants to ask before we take him offline? And
you can ask whatever you want. I don't care how hard of a question it is. I'll answer it truthfully.
it certainly is nice having him here to where we could pick his brain on from what I've thought.
Yeah, we'll give it just a second. See if somebody typed something in. But anyways, yeah, it's my pleasure to jump on with you. I know it's impromptu. So yeah, I'll get on out of here. It was good talking to you. And you know, you got my email if you ever need anything. Maybe we should touch bases by phone sometime and talk about this stuff too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know, as I said, I'm going to be on with Poe tomorrow night. We're going to
Good.
talk
I'm
about
looking forward
some
to it.
next steps and how to get a hold of your city people and state people and all that good kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you been fair? Have you been fair gamed lately?
Not fair gamed, but I do believe something is going on. But now's not a good time to discuss it. That'll come later when I'm sure. But yeah, I've been fair gamed in the past. In 2008, I got fair gamed big time, and that's something I have yet to make a video about, and I plan to. It's just trying to think about the way I want to do it. So, but it was good. It was good spending time with you, and you all take care. And I'm going to get on out of here, and we'll see you tonight on Poe's channel.
All right. Thanks for Crepitus. All right, guys.
Bye.
I think I'm going to take off too. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I certainly appreciate it. And if you have any other questions or want some guidance on anything, just post a note or give me an email. And appreciate it. Thank you so much.